The Trinity isn't biblical language, and the word isn't even actually in the Bible. Neither is co-equal, co-eternal, co-substantial, hypostatic union, God the Son, or three persons, one essence. Those are all later system words, not scripture words. So here's the real question. Do you believe what the text actually says, or do you believe a later model that you force onto the text? Because the Bible gives you one starting point, and it's not complicated. It's called the Shema. Hear, O Israel, Yahuwah is our Elohim, Yahuwah is one. It's not a puzzle, it's jurisdiction. It's one source, one highest authority, one Elohim. Now, watch what Yahusha does with that. John chapter 17. He doesn't say, we are the only true Elohim. He says, the Father is the only true Elohim. Then he places himself as the sent one. That's Axis 1 in plain language. One origin authority and the emissary he sent. And before someone tries to wiggle out of that, notice the repeated order everywhere. The Father sends, the Son is sent, the Son obeys, the Father gives authority, the Son receives it. That's not co-equal origin authority. That's delegated authority. Now, Trinitarians always try to dodge by saying same essence, different persons. Cool story. Show me where in Scripture that teaches that framework. Because the text keeps doing the opposite. Yahusha prays to the Father. You don't pray to yourself. Yahusha says the Father is greater. Greater is not equal. Yahusha says he can do nothing from himself, and nothing from himself is not the language of an independent second God. Yahusha says the doctrine is not his, but his Father's. So, who's the source? The Father. Then comes the big Trinitarian move. They grab a handful of verses and demand you override the entire authority order. So let's go through the favorite ones. First is John chapter 10. I and the Father are one. People scream, see, same being. But 2 chapters later, Yahusha prays that the disciples may be one just like we are one. So you either believe disciples become one being, or you admit that the word one can mean unity, alignment, shared purpose, or shared rule. And that fits the entire message. Yahusha is perfectly aligned with the Father's authority. Next, Matthew 28. Father, Son, and Spirit. A triadic phrase is not an ontology lecture. It tells you the authority structure of the mission. It doesn't define a three-person God. You can list three and still have one highest authority. Scripture does that constantly. Paul does it cleanest in 1 Corinthians chapter 8. One Elohim, the Father, from whom all things are all things, and one Master, Yahusha the Messiah, through whom are all things. From whom, through whom. That's not an equal origin source. That's the source and agent. Now, let's hit John 1, because people love to pretend it's a slam dunk. The text says the Word was with Elohim, and the Word was Elohim. Here's the honest statement. John 1 can be read in a highway that Trinitarians like, and it can also be read through agency categories that show Yahuwah's self-expression and action. But either way, John 1 does not erase John 17. It does not erase the sending language. It does not erase the obedience language. It does not erase the Father as the only true Elohim. You don't get to use one poetic prologue to overturn the entire authority order of Scripture. Next, the Spirit. The Bible speaks of the Spirit of Yahuwah. The Spirit proceeds from Yahuwah. Yahuwah pours out His Spirit. That's not a separate God or a separate God person floating around with independent origin authority. Yes, the Spirit is spoken of personally at times, and Scripture does that because wisdom is personified, sin is personified, death is personified. person language does not automatically equal a distinct divine person with equal status. So here's a simple test. If your Trinity reading makes the Father no longer one origin authority, it fails Shema. If it makes Yahusha a second origin authority, it breaks the entire structure of Scripture. If it makes the Spirit a third origin authority, you just built a three authority model and slapped the word one on it. And that's the part that nobody wants to admit. The Trinity tries to keep monotheism vocabulary while running a multi-person God model. That's why it needs philosophical scaffolding, because the plain text can't hold it up. Now, does any of this downplay Yahusha? No, not at all. It puts him exactly where the text puts him: the sent emissary, the promised Davidic king, the mediator, the once for all atonement, the appointed judge by delegation. High, exalted, given authority, but not the origin authority. If someone wants to keep the Trinity, fine, but stop pretending it's the Bible's plain teaching. It's a system. Scripture has an order, and if you read in order, Torah first, then Yahusha, then everything else, then the Trinity stops feeling like revelation and starts feeling like a patch job. So do this. Stop arguing slogans. Open the text. Mark three things: who sins, who speaks for whom, and who is called the only true Elohim. If you do that honestly, the Trinity collapses on its own.